God created us, created the whole world incomplete or imperfect, not in the sense of defective, but in the sense of immature. He didn't finish it. Some of my favorite examples of this are the fact that you think of certain fruits and vegetables, animals, they don't come from the hand of God ready to be used by us. We had millions of years ago to domesticate the potato, to domesticate the tomato, to domesticate the cow, to domesticate the dog, to domesticate the horse, and so on. So the world comes to us, you might say, raw from the hand of God. And it seems to me the Lord does that on purpose. Obviously, the omnipotent God could have given us a domesticated dog, right? But so the question then is, well, why didn't he? Why did he leave so much undone? Did he get bored with his work? No. Did he forget? No, obviously, right? Those are silly explanations. The reason he left the created world raw in a state of imperfection, the reason he left it raw is precisely so that we could finish it. Our job is to finish the creation that the Lord has given us. And because he's given us that role, I think, because he made us rational and free. If the Lord made the world finished and then made a rational, free creature in it, there's nothing for that rational, free creature to do. And the activities that are most appropriate to us, having reason and will, are the activities whereby we bring ourselves to flourishing and also the world around us. And so the Lord has to leave so much undone. It's really staggering when you think about how much he leaves undone in our own lives and then in the cosmos in general. So in any case, I think we all are by nature in a certain way made to be entrepreneurs. We're made to be co-creators with God, to bring the world around us, to bring ourselves to flourishing. So if I'm right that the entrepreneurial mindset is at least creativity and courage, at least that, and a kind of resiliency in the face of failure. Yeah, absolutely. The Lord Jesus had that spirit. So you can think of it was said about him, who teaches like this, right? His teaching is new. You think of his, you might say the acts whereby he instituted the church. They had baptism in Judaism, but he transforms it. They had the Passover in Judaism, but he transforms it. Right? It's really bold to do that sort of thing. And for us, of course, the if you want what you're calling the entrepreneurial spirit of Jesus, it really comes down to the fact that he's God incarnate. So that kind of creativity, that kind of boldness, that kind of freedom with religious custom and convention comes with the Lord because he's God. He's God incarnate. He's innovative and unconventional. I think oftentimes entrepreneurs are unconventional, but he's unconventional in the way he picks his disciples. You wouldn't, he sees in them potential that that other people don't see. And so to me, entrepreneurs often do that. They see potential where other people don't see nothing but obstacles. One of the most significant ways in which the earliest Christians were creative, so obviously the earliest Christians were Jews, but one of the earliest ways in which they were unconventional and creative, really getting this spirit from the Lord and this impetus from the Lord, is in their willingness to preach the gospel to the Gentiles. This is unheard of, right? The Jews, certainly at the time of Jesus in the first century, they were happy enough to be left alone. So they're living in a pagan society. They really don't have a posture of evangelization to this broader culture. They really want to be separate from them. Ideally, they'd be their own country, but they wouldn't have to deal with the pagans at all. And then St. Paul comes along and takes the words of Jesus to imply, rightly, to imply that the gospel must be preached also to the Gentiles, that the good news that the Lord had to offer is for everyone. And of course, this is very unsettling. You have that dispute recorded in Acts about what St. Paul calls the party of circumcision and the party of uncircumcision. So the early church had to face, early on, you might say, the bounds of creativity. So, and I think every entrepreneur has to think about these sorts of things. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do it, right? So you want to say, okay, I have this idea. Is it consistent with what's good and true? Is it consistent with the laws concerning justice? For a Christian, is it consistent with charity? And so, the early apostles had to face this. They said, okay, the Lord seems to be telling us to preach the gospel to the Gentiles. But should we really deviate from the law? And of course, they came up with a kind of compromise, but really saw to the essence of the matter. And they said, you have to keep the moral laws. You have to stay away from idolatry. You have to stay away from sexual immorality. But what we would call the cultic laws, you don't have to keep. Revolutionary, of course. Social entrepreneurship, I think, taps into yet another deep insight of Christianity. So if God sets things up so that he doesn't just give us things, but he sets us up for active participation, so that we're dependent upon him always and for everything, but we're also co-workers with him. This is the way he sets it up, but it's also then a model for us about how to deal in our relationship with others, how to serve others, how to love them. And basically, we need to act like God does. So the way God treats us, sometimes he gives us a gift, a simple gift, and sometimes he doesn't. Sometimes we have to work and participate and exercise our own talents so as to achieve these goods. And so we need to do the same thing, I think, in our relationships with others. Sometimes you'll meet people and the right thing to do is to give them a gift. No strings attached, right? But other times that's not the right thing to do. In fact, sometimes that can be the wrong thing to do. Sometimes what a person really needs may be a job, for example. So sometimes the right thing to do may be to start a company, to make an investment. So I think this social entrepreneurship is tapping into an insight that the Christians have long had. So to wrap this up, it seems to me that the entrepreneur spirit is really at the core of human nature. And because it's at the core of human nature, it's at the core of the way in which God has saved us. Right? So again, if you have this principle that he saves us in the same way in which he made us, or in a way consistent with the way in which he made us, then you see this common theme. If we're going to be participators at the natural level, we're going to be participators at the supernatural level. And so you see this kind of common denominator. It's really important, though. I think the entrepreneur has certain temptations. I mean, all humans, insofar as we are all entrepreneurs, have these temptations, but especially those of us who are especially creative and especially bold and especially comfortable with risk. There's going to be the temptation really to kind of forget that you're not the creator. You can kind of overestimate your creativity and lose sight of the fact that creativity is to be exercised in a certain context. There are certain, as you say, guardrails. It's not an absolute creativity. Even God's creativity in a certain way is not absolute. Right? So God, for example, he doesn't make square circles, or he acts in a way that's consistent with his own nature. So God, I would say, cannot command us to lie. He cannot lie, and he cannot command us to lie. So there are the entrepreneur in his creativity has to be true to his nature. He has to be, for the Christian, he has to be true to the gospel. So his creativity cannot then extend beyond the bounds of what is true and what is good and what is holy. And in fact, I would argue that insofar as he does that, his creativity will actually diminish.